It was an unusually warm spring morning in the small town nestled between dense woods and rolling hills. The sun's golden rays pierced through the open windows, casting soft beams on the walls of Tommy's home. He was 7 years old, with dark brown curly hair and big, curious eyes that seemed to take in every small detail of his world. His house, a small wooden cabin on the outskirts of town, was quiet, with only the sounds of birds singing in the distance and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Tommy was finishing his breakfast when the peaceful silence was broken by a loud, unexpected knock on the door. He froze, his spoon still hovering over his bowl of cereal. His parents, busy cleaning the kitchen, hadn't noticed the knock. It wasn't common for anyone to stop by this early, especially not strangers. Tommy's curiosity got the better of him, and he jumped up from the table, walking toward the door. He was hesitant, unsure of who could be outside, but he felt a strange pull to open it. With a small push, he opened the door just a crack. What he saw made his heart stop. Standing there in the doorway was a large mother bear. Her thick brown fur shimmered in the sunlight, and her dark eyes were full of something Tommy couldn't quite place. At her side stood two tiny cubs, their small bodies huddling close to their mother. The sight was both surreal and breathtaking. The bears weren't supposed to be this close to the house. Wild animals like bears belong deep in the forest. Yet, here they were, standing in front of him, as if they were waiting for something. Tommy's heart pounded in his chest. He had heard stories about bears in the woods, but never had he imagined one would come this close. He hesitated, staring at the mother bear, who seemed to be looking directly at him with a deep, pleading gaze. The cubs, too, were staring up at him, their large eyes full of innocent wonder. They didn't seem afraid, but rather curious and trusting. The mother bear let out a low, gentle grunt, and Tommy's legs went weak with uncertainty. What should he do? Should he close the door and run back inside, or should he risk everything and let them in? His parents had always told him to stay away from wild animals. They could be dangerous. But something about the way the mother bear was standing there, so calm and unthreatening, made Tommy second-guess everything he had been taught. Tommy swallowed hard, his mind racing as he tried to figure out what to do. The cubs shuffled closer, their tiny paws making soft noises on the wooden porch. They were so innocent, so small and vulnerable. They looked up at him as if asking for help. Then, the mother bear nudged her cubs gently toward the door, taking a step forward as if urging Tommy to let them in. Tommy's heart softened. He didn't know why, but he felt a deep sense of responsibility. These bears weren't here to harm him. They were asking for something. "Mom, Dad!" Tommy shouted, but his voice trembled. There was no response. They were still in the kitchen, unaware of the extraordinary moment unfolding outside. The mother bear's eyes flicked toward the house, then back to Tommy. Her eyes weren't wild with fear or aggression. Rather, they were filled with an urgent kindness, a need that Tommy couldn't ignore. It was as though she was silently asking for his help. Tommy stepped back, his hand shaking slightly, as he reached out and opened the door wider. "Come in," he whispered, not sure why he was speaking to the animals as though they could understand. The moment he moved, the mother bear took another slow, deliberate step forward, guiding her cubs inside. Tommy stepped aside, his breath held in anticipation. The cubs hesitated for just a second before trotting into the house, their little paws padding softly on the floor. The mother bear followed, her large form moving past Tommy, and as she crossed the threshold, Tommy felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The moment the door closed behind them, Tommy stood still for a moment, just staring at the bears in awe. The mother bear walked toward the center of the room and sat down, her body gently settling onto the floor as the cubs started to play nearby. The atmosphere was warm, serene, and strangely peaceful. It was as if the world outside had disappeared, and for this brief moment, the only thing that mattered was the soft presence of these animals in his home. Tommy didn't know what to expect next, but he knew one thing for certain. His life had just changed in a way he couldn't explain, and the bear family had come to him for a reason. As the bears settled in the living room, Tommy stood frozen, unable to believe what was happening. The mother bear, her massive form occupying a space by the fireplace, lay down with a quiet sigh. Her eyes never left Tommy, as though she was silently communicating her gratitude. The cubs, smaller and more energetic, wandered around the room, sniffing at everything they could reach. Playful and curious, like any young animal, they seemed completely at ease in the new environment. Tommy's heart raced as he looked from the bears to the kitchen, where his parents were still unaware of the strange situation unfolding outside. The door was closed, but Tommy could hear the soft sounds of his mother humming as she washed the dishes. His father's voice occasionally carried through the house as he worked in the garage. Neither had noticed the bears enter. Tommy felt a deep urge to tell them, to explain what had happened, but something held him back. The bears had trusted him, and in that moment, he didn't want to betray their trust. He wasn't sure why, but he knew they needed to stay inside, at least for now. With a nervous glance toward the kitchen, Tommy quietly sat down on the couch, his gaze never leaving the mother bear. The room was still and calm, a stark contrast to the pounding of Tommy's heart. The cubs, now playfully tumbling over each other, made Tommy smile despite the situation. Their innocence was contagious. It felt like they were just children, looking for a safe place to rest. And for the first time in his life, Tommy understood the delicate balance between wild creatures and the human world. Minutes passed, but Tommy could hardly stand the silence. He glanced again at the kitchen, wondering how he would explain everything to his parents when they found out. He had always been a curious boy, but this was unlike any adventure he'd ever imagined. Finally, Tommy's mother entered the room. She stopped at the doorway, her eyes widening in surprise as she saw the two cubs playfully rolling around on the floor. Her gaze shifted to the mother bear, who was calmly watching her, and then back to Tommy. "Tommy," she said, her voice a mix of confusion and concern. "What is this?" Tommy swallowed, his mind racing to find the right words. I don't know, Mom. I heard a knock on the door, and when I opened it, they were there. The mother bear and her cubs. They needed help." Tommy's mother took a tentative step forward, her cautious eyes never leaving the bears. How did you know what to do?" Tommy shrugged, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I just knew. She looked at me, and I knew she needed something. I didn't want to turn her away." His mother took another step, her expression softening as she observed the peacefulness in the room. "Well, I guess we have to figure out what to do next. But we can't let anyone see them. It's too dangerous." Tommy nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The bears were in their home, seeking shelter, but the world outside wouldn't understand. They were wild animals after all. If anyone found out, it could end badly for all of them. His mother knelt down, carefully reaching out to pet one of the cubs. The little bear looked up at her with wide eyes, sniffing her hand before gently licking it. Tommy's mother smiled softly, her anxiety melting into a feeling of warmth and connection. "They're not so different from us," she whispered to Tommy. "They just need a little kindness." Tommy smiled back, a sense of relief washing over him. He had done the right thing by letting them in. The trust the mother bear had shown him and the peacefulness of her cubs felt like a bond that was beyond words. As his mother continued to pet the cubs, Tommy stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the vast forest in the distance. He knew the bears would need to leave soon, but for now, they were safe. And for the first time in his life, Tommy felt a connection to the wild that was deeper than anything he had ever imagined. As the hours passed, the small house seemed to embrace the serenity that the bear family brought with them. Tommy's parents, initially hesitant, had softened to the idea of helping the wild creatures. They understood that the bears were not here by choice, but out of desperation. The gentle cubs played near the hearth, and the mother bear, though vigilant, had grown calm, her eyes softening every time she glanced at Tommy. But Tommy knew that the time would come when the bears couldn't stay forever. As dusk began to fall, Tommy stood at the window, gazing out at the dense forest where the bears had come from. He knew they needed to return to the wild. The sound of a truck engine broke the silence. The hunters were approaching. Tommy's heart raced. Without a second thought, he hurried to the back door, urging the bears toward the woods. The mother bear hesitated, but then, with one final look back at Tommy, she led her cubs into the safety of the trees. As the bears disappeared into the forest, Tommy felt a quiet peace settle over him. He had helped them find safety, and in return, they had given him something far more valuable: the lesson that kindness could bridge even the wildest of worlds.